Hi, seventh grade. Today is Thursday. Welcome back. Today we're going to continue working on the manor system and how it functions. Before we do that, we're going to go over the exit ticket. This is a question that said, this is UC Davis, by the way. One day I'm going to pick a different exit ticket. So who did I give a shout out to? The shout out was to Ernesto. When I see I forgot or I forgot, IDK, NA. That's not acceptable, right? This shows me that you're not listening carefully on the video. So please take your time. And then we have in Western Europe, feudalism developed after. It developed after Rome collapsed. It's Rome, the Middle Ages. It develops during the Middle Ages. The end of the Middle Ages is actually the Renaissance. So this one is after Rome collapsed. Feudalism involved all of these except this. You cannot move up in society. If you were a peasant, you will stay a peasant. If you were a knight, you will stay a knight, and your kids will probably be knights. There was no social mobility. Okay. The king and nobles gave land. The ones that gave land are called lords. If you received land, you were a vassal. This seems to be a big issue in this class. It is also important to remember that warfare between the many kingdoms from Western Europe was frequent. It happened quite often, and therefore armies were important. During the Middle Ages, most people lived in manors. Again, we'll talk about manors today. What is the meaning of the word self-sufficient? That means that you don't depend on others to get your needs done. Which of the following supports the best answer? It was that each manor produced its own food, clothing, and shelter, and people who lived in it on it grew, raised, and made nearly everything they needed. How could you become a vassal? You become a vassal as soon as someone gives you land. You become their vassal, and they become your lord. They become your lord. The feudal manor was this picture of there's a castle or a big house, there's farmland, and so forth. Which of the following could a noble do to land? He could build a manor himself or have someone build a manor for him. And he or she could also divide it among his other people that he wants to give it to. He becomes their lord. He does not give it back to the king. He does not give it to the peasants. The peasants do not get any land. Okay, so that's that. Today we're going to talk about the manor system. There's going to be some questions embedded here. I will be checking and see how you do on this. Okay, so this obviously this could be a manor, a very fancy manor with a big castle at the center. A very powerful lord probably lives here. This is a manor too. You have the field where the peasants work. The peasants are farmers, and also the serfs. We'll talk about serfs. So serfs are peasants, but they cannot leave the manor. It's a type of like slavery. There's the serfs where they live in small homes, very simple homes. They probably have dirt floors. They probably don't have insulation. They probably are probably cold or hot, depending on the season. The Lord's Castle. There's the fields where they plant. There's the church, right? The Lord. It was considered like a privilege to live here, right? Because he protected you. He or she protected you, and in return you pay them a tax. But there's many things associated with this, right? We'll talk about what are some of the issues with being a peasant, right? There's a lot of issues. You're really poor. You can't move up in society. You have to pay a lot of taxes to the Lord, taxes to the church, right? If you want to get your if you want to use the mill, you have to pay a tax as well. Okay. So the manor includes a castle and the lands and buildings around it. Any land around the castle was part of the manor. There might be a jungle. There might be some farmland. Everything belongs to the Lord. Villages on a manor usually had less than 600 residents, so it's small. These were not big cities; they were pretty small. They were self-sufficient. We talked about that yesterday, which means they produce everything they needed. You're trying to avoid contact with the outside because you don't want to travel. Traveling is not the safest thing. So you make your own food, clothing, and farming tools. Peasants lived in simple homes, um, you know, like a cottage. It was a very difficult life. The manor house was where the lord and his family lived. Something about the kitchen. So what is a manor? So this is another picture of what a manor might look like, right? This is a big castle. Here are the peasants, free peasants or serfs. And it wasn't just peasants that lived in the manor, or lords, right? Or nobles. It was also knights. It could have been some people that create some tools. It could be church officials. It's not just one or two type of people. There are usually large fields around the manor used for livestock, for animals to graze on, eat. They're for crops and hunting. Interesting thing is that only the lord is allowed to hunt, or the person that's in charge of the castle. Buildings usually present in a manner where the buildings that usually found here are, there might be a church, there might be a village for blacksmiths, bakers, and peasant huts. We talked about self-sufficiency, that you're trying to do everything you can here at this at the manor. You're trying to avoid contact with the outside. Life as a person on a manor was very difficult, right? Um, Peasants, they usually work 6 days a week, all day. They have Sundays off. Peasants will farm and grow food for the manor to make money. Tradespeople will sometimes include people that work in the mill, bakers, blacksmiths, carpenters, and they do try to sell their materials. Obviously, they still have to pay a tax to the lord. Life of the manor for the lord. They're in charge. They're like the big boss, right? They make the rules. They make the rules and laws, and if you don't like them, you can leave, right? But you're gonna go to a different lord, and they're gonna have the same problem. Lords were in charge of running the manor and giving out land. They were sometimes privy to. Sometimes they were knights, maybe, or a knight could be a lord too. Their money comes from the food that they collect from peasants, the rents, fines. Uh, so the peasants are an essential part of the feudal system. Without peasants, there is no feudal system. The problem is, it's very similar to the United States, right, or the world, right, where the most essential people get the least amount of money. But if you get rid of all the most essential people, there is no economy, right? Um, you know how there's issues with society today, where we have people that can't go to work and everything comes to a standstill, right? If the Lord wasn't looking after his land, then someone else, he will pick someone called an overlord. I'm gonna skip this part here. Life on the manor. Again, for peasants, they work from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Um, Peasants who are serfs. Serfs are simply peasants that can't leave the manor. It's a form of slavery. Serfs were given land and a house in order to do work for the lord. Free peasants rented land from their lord and didn't have to work for him. Um, the big difference between a free peasant and a serf is that a free peasant is able to leave the manor. He doesn't have to stay there. He or she doesn't have to stay there. A serf is tied to the land. All right, peasants paid for privilege of serving the lord. So was it great for them? So they have to pay taxes on all grain ground on the floor and to flour at the mill. So they pay to have their grain ground. It's a crime to get bread elsewhere. You're living there, so you have to follow that rule. Marriage was taxed, and you had to have the Lord's permission. If the Lord says you can't marry, then you couldn't marry. Again, if you don't like that, you can leave, but you're gonna have the same problem with someone else. The church also collected a tax. Cottages where they lived were small, crowded. They lived with their pigs inside because they were warm. Interesting. Straw beds were infested with bugs. Right. At this time, hygiene wasn't the biggest thing. Work, work, work for your Lord and your food, but you were guaranteed land, food, and protection, right? And the land is not for you to own. Um, but I'm not gonna focus too much on this. This is the fields that they use, and what they would do was, in order to avoid having the land become like infertile or not give crops anymore, they will rotate the land. So maybe this year they might grow land here, and the next year they wouldn't here, so they will rotate it. Okay. Um, we'll stop here. The church was really important at this time. Most Europeans at this time were Christian, and they were required to go to church. The church was like a hope for many people during this time, right? They lived a very short life. They lived up to maybe their 30s, and with the hope of living a good life, so that when you die, you go to heaven. So you were preparing for the next life here on earth, so that you would enter heaven, right? Heaven is forever, and life here on earth was very difficult, but it only lasted 30 something years. So the church was there to take you to heaven or get you to heaven. And we'll stop here. This is another map of what a manor might look like. There's a manor house. There's a village church. There's peasants where they live. Um, there's the fields owned by the Lord. The Lord will not farm this himself. He would have peasants farm it for him, right? The peasants will farm this, and then the peasants might have a field, but that land does not belong to them. They have to give a part of what they grow to the Lord. There's a mill. There's a common pasture where you have animals eat the grass, and there's the woodland. Here's another one. Where's the big home? Here it is. Here it is. The manor house. Here it says roads, but this was not a situation where you had highways. This might be a walkway, right? Roads were not a thing because this was a small area, right? And you're trying to avoid going in and out of the manor. We saw this manor already. Again, the manor was the economic aspect of feudalism. You'll have two videos today. They're both going to be on Ed Puzzle, and there's going to be questions associated with them, and you also have an exit ticket. Uh, Keep pushing yourself. You're amazing. You have a quiz next week. I'll see you guys later. Bye.